The arc spire shimmered like a blade of obsidian suspended above Earth, its reflective hull catching streaks of solar light that carved sharp lines across its surface. Commander Eric Helion stood in the training hall's observation ring, watching the recruits navigate a shifting maze of holographic obstructions. Their movements were quick but lacked the practiced precision he demanded. Every hesitation carried weight, every choice revealed how they processed fear, loyalty, and instinct. "Reset sequence," Eric ordered. The maze collapsed and rebuilt itself into a tighter formation. The recruits steadied themselves, breath visible in the cool air. Eric kept his tone even, firm without anger. "Remember what you carry," he said. "Humanity doesn't rely on strength alone. We remember. We adapt. We protect. Every step forward comes from knowing the ground behind you." Their focus sharpened immediately. That was the effect of his voice, controlled force, sharpened through years of training that balanced diplomacy with combat. The moment the new sequence engaged, their movements became deliberate, as if each one recognized the silent weight of history behind the exercise. Before Eric could analyze their progress, the hall doors parted with a soft metallic glide. A cadet approached quickly, boots echoing against the floor. "Commander Helion," she said, offering a sealed slate. "Priority summons from the Arc Spire Council." Eric read the directive. His jaw locked. "You're dismissed," he told her. Then, to the recruits, "End session early. Review your telemetry logs." They saluted, though their expressions carried curiosity. Summons of this level rarely arrived without reason. Eric left the hall, stepping into the corridor that spiraled toward the Spire's transit hub. The city-like station hummed with constant motion, engineers, analysts, diplomats, security officers, all threads in a tapestry that represented humanity's ascent among the stars. Even now, he sensed an undertone of tension running through the structure, like a string pulled taut. The shuttle to Vetrion 5 already waited. Its pilot gave a brief nod as Eric boarded. The interior lights dimmed as the vessel disengaged, sliding into the void. The flight was silent. Eric's thoughts turned to the implications of the summons. The Concord Council had a habit of masking hostility beneath courtesy, especially when humanity's influence grew too quickly for their comfort. Every year, more species approached Earth seeking trade, alliances, or technological exchange, alliances the Concord would prefer to control. As the shuttle approached Vetrion 5, the planet's shimmering city structures rose like crystalline towers over silver oceans. The Concord Hall sat in the center, a domed citadel of polished white alloy that tried too hard to appear impartial. Eric stepped inside to find the chamber already filled. Delegates from dozens of species lined the ascending tiers, their varied eyes following him with open suspicion. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, though no one had spoken yet. High Praetor Vraxilian Moreth occupied the central podium. His tall, angular frame and obsidian carapace made him appear carved from shadow. His expression was unreadable, but his posture radiated self-assured dominance. "Commander Helion," Vraxilian said, his voice smooth and cold. "Humanity arrives swiftly when summoned. Commendable." Eric stopped at the central floor. "Your summons implied urgency. I expect the matter warrants such gravity." The Praetor clasped his hands behind his back. "A catastrophe occurred on the Shard Frontier 2 cycles ago. Stasis vaults collapsed. Entire archives disintegrated. Evidence shows direct involvement from a human strike vessel." A ripple of murmurs surged through the chamber. Eric remained still. "What vessel?" Vraxilian projected a hologram above the hall. A charred vault floated in the image, surrounded by debris. Overlaying signatures pulsed crimson. The Praetor continued. "Humanity claimed exclusive salvage rights in that sector. The vault's destruction destabilized multiple systems. It cannot be ignored. The Concord proposes sanctions until an investigation concludes." Eric studied the hologram carefully. The data signatures were human in structure, but the patterns were too immaculate, too sanitized to be authentic. Whoever created them understood human tech intimately. "What you're showing," Eric said, "is a fabrication." Accusations without proof are not helpful, Braxillian replied with a pleasant smile that failed to hide its venom. But by all means, demonstrate innocence. The Concord awaits your evidence. The chamber quieted. Eric allowed a short pause, letting the implication settle. Humanity stood on the edge of political isolation. To present evidence, I need access to the site, Eric said. Full clearance. Neutral observers. And the Concord will suspend sanctions until a formal inquiry is complete. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The suggestion of neutrality was rare. Braxillian tilted his head. A bold request. A reasonable one, Eric answered. Unless the Council prefers a ruling without truth. A hum of agreement rose from a handful of factions, species once aided by humanity during border conflicts. Braxillian's eyes narrowed a fraction. Very well, Commander, he said. You may proceed to the Shard frontier. But do remember something. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Eric would hear. Your species clings to memory with obsessive devotion. It makes you resilient, but also dangerous. Perhaps it is time the galaxy forgets certain chapters. Eric's pulse tightened, though his expression didn't shift. Memory ensures accountability. Or chaos, Braxillian murmured. We will see which future prevails. The Praetor retreated to the podium. The Council grants access. Your departure is immediate. We anticipate your findings. Eric offered a curt nod and turned toward the exit. The delegates' whispers followed him, fear, curiosity, resentment, but he ignored them. His focus narrowed on the facts. The evidence had been staged with surgical precision. The timing was deliberate. And Braxillian's final comment hinted at motives far beyond political maneuvering. Outside the hall, Eric contacted the Arcspire. Prepare a reconnaissance team. We're deploying to the Shard frontier. Confirmed, the operator replied. Do you suspect hostile interference? Yes, Eric said. And it runs deeper than sabotage. He boarded the shuttle again. As the engines engaged, he stared out at the sprawling Concord city. Beneath its gleaming architecture lay centuries of buried decisions, ones the galaxy hoped humanity would forget. But humanity remembered everything. The spire came into view. Its dark hull loomed like a sentinel against the stars, as if waiting for the storm it already sensed approaching. Eric stepped off the shuttle with renewed purpose. The air seemed colder, the corridors sharper, the hum of machinery louder. The Council had moved its first piece. Now it was humanity's turn. Set course for the frontier, Eric said. The spire's engines ignited, glowing like an ember stoked to life. Whatever truth waited in the ruins, Eric intended to uncover it, before the galaxy rewrote history again. The journey to the Shard frontier carved a silver arc through quiet space, far from the polished order of Concord territories. Here, the void carried an older kind of silence, one shaped by forgotten empires, collapsed networks, and stations left drifting like skeletal remains of ambitions long extinguished. Eric stood on the bridge of the vigilant dawn, watching fractured megastructures rotate slowly around a dying blue star. The frontier was a graveyard of the ZYR Dominion, each remnant scarred by wars the Concord preferred not to discuss. Entire civilizations had risen here, then vanished, leaving only ruins suspended in endless vacuum. Commander, said Lieutenant Mara Velan, his recon specialist. We're approaching the coordinates of the vault collapse. Bring us in, Eric replied. The dawn glided between jagged spires of alloy, their surfaces etched with deep gouges. Cold light spilled across the bridge as the vault site came into view. What remained of the structure floated in disjointed fragments, as though ripped apart from within. Charred plates drifted outward from a shattered core. Residual energy crackled faintly along the debris, the pale glow pulsing in slow waves. Mara ran a scan. Energy signature still active. But the decay pattern doesn't match the timeline the Praetor offered. This happened recently, too recently. Which means the Concord adjusted the report, Eric said. Science Officer Tauren Jean swiveled from his console. Commander, something's odd. The text signature's human, but the energy behavior isn't. It mimics human systems, but not perfectly. Eric knew the distinction immediately. A forged imprint. High-level work. Very high. Talon agreed. Whoever did this studied human systems intimately. The Dawn's automated clamps deployed as Eric prepared to board the wreck with his team. The shuttle detached and descended toward the vault's twisted entrance. Dust particles drifted like glitter in the beam of the shuttle's lights. When they stepped onto the structure, their magnetic boots clicked against scorched alloy. Eric's visor displayed a map built from old Z-wire schematics, though most of the layout was now nothing more than guesswork. This was a preservation vault, Talon said. Z-wire artifacts, historical logs, research archives, priceless, even for them. And now conveniently destroyed, Mara added. They moved deeper into the corridor. Exposed conduits glowed with unstable luminescence. Something had detonated from within, but the directionality was inconsistent. Eric knelt by a charred panel. No blast residue consistent with human ordnance. So the evidence against us is entirely digital, Mara said. Nothing physical supports the claim. Which means Vraxilian never expected us to inspect this place, Eric replied. He counted on the council ruling quickly. Talon paused at a fractured console, its screen flickering with scattered symbols. I can recover fragments of data, Commander. Do it. As Talon interfaced with the system, Eric studied the hall. The vault felt wrong. Not simply destroyed, manipulated. The damage was too precise. Too clean in some places, too chaotic in others. The pattern matched sabotage designed to mimic an internal failure, yet everything pointed to external interference. A soft tremor ran through the floor. Mara raised her weapon. Structural instability? No, Eric said. Movement. A faint metallic shuffle echoed from deeper inside the ruin. Something alive. Eric signaled for silence. The sound approached, steady but deliberate. Shadows shifted at the end of the corridor before a slender figure emerged, unsteady on its feet. Its pale, translucent skin shimmered faintly beneath a cloak of woven metallic threads. Identify yourself, Eric called. The figure stopped, raising empty hands. Do not fire, it said, voice thin but clear. I mean no harm. Mara kept her weapon fixed. State your name. Tyron Sovek, the figure replied. Former archivist of the Concord. Former servant to Vraxilian. Eric's stance hardened. You survived the collapse? I hid in a stabilization chamber. When the vault ruptured, the emergency seals held for a short while. Tyron took a slow breath. Then the silence came. Eric motioned for Mara to lower her weapon but not relax. Why are you here? I was ordered to oversee the transfer of certain Z-wire relics, Tyron said. But when the sabotage began, I saw something I wasn't meant to see. Tyron stepped forward cautiously. What did you witness? Tyron's eyes dimmed. Vraxilian's operatives. They planted false signatures, human signatures, throughout the vault. When the data was embedded, they initiated the overload sequence. Eric absorbed the information without the slightest flicker. Why tell us this? Because the Predator intends to erase more than this vault. Tyron pulled a small, glowing shard from beneath his cloak. This contains evidence of his plan. A weapon built from Z-wire research. They call it Protocol Silence. Talron's breath hitched. Silence, as in destruction? No, Tyron whispered. Erasure. A pulse that targets information itself. Archives, records, memory networks, entire histories could vanish. Humanity's records are the first target. Eric felt a cold heaviness settle beneath his ribs. He wants to wipe our history. Yes, Tyron said. He fears what you remember. The Dominion's crimes. The Concord's complicity. He believes removing your records will destabilize your unity. Perhaps even weaken your presence in the galactic sphere. Mara tightened her grip on her weapon. And after that? Tyron's voice cracked. He intends to deploy it across multiple systems. A galaxy that forgets is one he can reshape. Eric studied the pale archivist. Why defect? Because I once believed the Concorde sought balance. I was wrong. And because humanity was kind to my world when the Concorde abandoned us generations ago. His eyes flicked upward. We do not forget that. Eric recognized the sincerity. It carried the weight of someone who had watched ideals crumble. Commander, Tauren said, holding up the shard. This contains verifiable evidence. And it matches anomalies in the vault's destruction pattern. Secure it, Eric ordered. Before they could move, Tauren staggered, clutching his side. Eric caught him. Beneath the cloak, a deep burn wound pulsed with darkened fluid. How long have you been injured? Eric asked. Since the collapse? Tauren whispered. I came, because there was no time. Eric supported him. We'll get you to medical treatment. No. Tauren shook his head weakly. There is something else. Protocol Silence's activation sequence is already underway. The Concorde will not wait for your return. They fear exposure. Mara swore under her breath. How soon? Tauren's breath trembled. Hours, perhaps less. Eric steadied him. Then we stop it. Tauren exhaled faintly and nodded. You must uncover every layer of his plan. Or the galaxy will forget more than you can imagine. His grip loosened. Eric lowered him gently to the floor as his breathing slowed. Commander, Tauren said quietly. He's gone. Eric closed Tauren's eyes. We honor him by finishing this. He rose, carrying the shard. Return to the dawn, he said. We're done here. As they crossed the ruined corridor, Eric glanced back at the silent vault. It wasn't just a crime scene. It was a warning. And the war for memory had already begun. The vigilant dawn cut through the void with accelerating urgency, its engines humming with a resonance that filled the bridge like a steady heartbeat. Eric stood at the forward console, the glowing shard resting in a containment field beside him. Its pulsing core emitted faint streams of encoded patterns, each one layered with data that could shift the balance of the entire Concorde. Tauren worked rapidly at the secondary station, arranging the shard's extracted fragments into sequences. His focus was absolute, fingers moving with a speed sharpened by both fear and determination. Mara stepped near Eric. We should alert Earth Command. The Council's preparing Protocol Silence. We can't fight this alone. If we broadcast now, Eric said, the transmission could be intercepted. Vraxillion will accuse us of tampering and escalate sanctions before we gather evidence. We need irrefutable proof. Evidence won't matter if the pulse fires, Mara reminded him. If it reaches Earth. It won't, Eric said. Not while we're alive. Tauren turned, projection flickering across his visor. Commander, the shard contains a partial map of the assembly structure where Protocol Silence is being primed. It's located inside the Concorde's Central Data Annex on Vetrion 5. Mara exhaled sharply. Their most fortified facility. By design, Tauren said. The weapon integrates into their archive network. Once activated, the pulse spreads through memory relays. It doesn't destroy, it rewrites. Slowly, selectively. Entire histories could fade without anyone realizing. Eric studied the map. How long until activation? Tauren swallowed. Based on energy behavior, less than 9 hours. Silence settled over the bridge, heavy but focused. Eric's mind assembled pathways through the challenge, routes, weaknesses, patterns. The Concorde relied on predictable systems, predictable responses. But Vraxillion's actions stepped outside their usual framework. This wasn't politics. This was eradication. And Tauren had paid for revealing it. Eric turned to Mara. Prepare infiltration gear. We're returning to Vetrion 5. Mara blinked. You want to enter the annex itself? Commander, that's suicide. Then we adapt and survive, Eric replied. Protocol Silence ends there. Tauren projected additional data. We'll need a disguise. Concorde patrols monitor every vessel entering the inner sector. Then we create an anomaly, Eric said. One that forces them to let us through. The Vigilant Dawn altered course, heading toward a border checkpoint. Sensors detected a flotilla of Concorde drones stationed near the approach vector. Their orientation patterns indicated full alert, but their scanning range left a distinct blind spot behind a cluster of drifting metallic shards. "Position us behind that debris field," Eric ordered. The ship eased into the shelter of the fragments. Mara initiated an energy spike from the Dawn's auxiliary generator. The sudden surge rippled through the debris, mimicking a destabilized relic signature, a phenomenon the Concorde monitored obsessively. Within minutes, 2 patrol cutters broke formation and approached the disturbance. Eric maintained silence as they scanned. "Patience," he murmured. The drones shifted, focusing their sensors elsewhere. The cutters drifted farther from the checkpoint, their attention locked on the false reading. "No," Eric said. The Dawn swept past the checkpoint, slipping into the inner corridor undetected. Mara exhaled. "I can't believe that actually worked." Eric gave a slight nod. "Belief isn't required. Only execution." Vetrion 5 rose into view again, its crystalline spires gleaming beneath the pale shimmer of its atmosphere. But this time, the world carried an undercurrent of danger. Every flicker of light, every patrol formation, every transmission felt sharpened by intent. The Dawn anchored in a concealed orbit behind a communications relay tower. Eric, Mara, and Tauren suited up in infiltration gear, adaptive plating capable of blending with environmental tones. "Tauren," Eric said, "you'll guide us through the Annex networks. Mara, you handle counter-surveillance. My focus is reaching the core chamber." Mara checked her equipment. "Once we retrieve full evidence, we expose the truth," Eric said. Galaxy-wide. They boarded the stealth shuttle. The descent through Vetrion 5's upper layers was quiet, the craft's hull shimmering to match atmospheric colors. They landed on a maintenance platform beneath the Annex, an overlooked structure lined with mesh conduits, ventilation lines, and faintly glowing algorithmic patterns embedded in the alloy. "This way," Tauren said. They slipped inside a narrow passage. The interior temperature dropped as they moved deeper, shadows folding around their forms. The air smelled faintly of ionized metal and recycled oxygen. The corridor opened into a vast chamber where luminous data veins pulsed along the walls like glowing rivers. Concorde engineers walked along suspended walkways far above, unaware of the intruders moving below. Tauren accessed a hidden panel. The shard's projection lit up, aligning with an encoded lock. "The core chamber is 2 levels down," he whispered. "We have a short window before the next security sweep." They navigated through the dim infrastructure, stepping between thick conduits vibrating with power. Mara halted abruptly, raising a hand. 2 guards passed on the upper walkway, conversing in low tones. "Activation sequence begins at cycle shift. Pretor wants the pulse ready before the humans reach home space." The voices faded. Mara tapped her visor. "That confirms Tauren was right." Eric's expression remained unshaken. "Then we move faster." They descended into a lower chamber where a circular vault door dominated the wall. Its surface was smooth, seamless, and guarded by 2 sentinel drones. Their mono-eye sensors swept across the chamber with mechanical precision. "A direct approach will fail," Tauren whispered. "Not if we blind them," Mara said. She pulled a small emitter from her belt. "Strobe disruptor. Short range but enough." She tossed the device into the air. It burst into a silent shimmer, releasing a pulse that scrambled the drone's sensors. They froze mid-sweep. "Move," Eric said. Tauren accessed the vault, embedding the shard into a secondary slot. The door's surface rippled, folding open like petals, revealing a chamber bathed in stark white light. Inside lay the assembly core of Protocol Silence. A colossal crystalline lattice hovered at the room's center, suspended by gravitational stabilizers. Streams of data poured into it from metallic conduits, feeding the weapon's heart. Pale waves shimmered along its facets, each one a fragment of memory siphoned from distant archives. Mara stared in disbelief. "It's already collecting data." Tauren examined the readings. It's primed but not fully charged. We have time, but not much. Eric stepped forward, feeling the hum of the structure vibrate through his boots. This was the weapon designed to erase history, to weaken humanity by cutting it from the roots of its identity. A silent apocalypse. Tauren's voice tightened. Commander, the shard contains a shutdown sequence, but incomplete. We need the final layer stored in the Annex's Prime server. Mara exhaled. Meaning we have to go deeper. Eric nodded once. Prepare for the next phase. But before they could move, the vault door sealed behind them with a metallic thud. A deep, cold voice echoed through the chamber. Commander Helion. How very predictable. Vraxilion's silhouette appeared on the upper walkway, carapace gleaming under the sterile lights. Dozens of drones emerged from hidden alcoves, aiming weapons at the team. Eric didn't flinch. The trap had sprung, but so had the truth. Dust drifted across the ruined surface of Kethra Prime as the storm finally weakened. Eric stepped out of the shuttle, visor gleaming under a twilight sky bruised violet by the nebula above. He surveyed the silent flatland where the Vraxilian superweapon had been activated. Not a crater. Not a shard. No radiant blast signatures. Just stillness. A quiet so unnatural it felt engineered. Saris walked beside him, boots crunching over glassy sand. Scanners confirm the distortion hasn't dissipated. It's stable, like something folded reality into a narrow pocket. Her voice was low, even she sensed the wrongness. Dravik joined them, his posture rigid. The Vraxilians didn't test a weapon. They tested a boundary. Eric nodded. Then we find its source. The three advanced toward a faint ripple hovering above the ground nearly half a kilometer away. The distortion shimmered, refracting the landscape behind it like liquid metal trembling against the air. Saris adjusted the sensor rig on her forearm. Field isn't harmful. But something is feeding it from within. Or someone, Dravik murmured. Eric stepped forward. The distortion parted around him, accepting his presence with unnatural ease. He glanced back. Stay linked. We go together. They crossed the threshold. The world inside was wrong. A sphere of fractured geometry floated above them, shifting angles and surfaces like a puzzle refusing to settle on a final shape. Around it whirled currents of coherent light, streams of energy streaking like rivers in reverse. The ground appeared to be stone but responded to each step with a faint pulse. Impossible, Saris whispered. This is designed. Intentionally. Eric studied the shifting object. A construct? A message, Dravik said. Vraxilian architecture doesn't behave like this. Someone else built it. A voice resonated through the chamber, neither mechanical nor organic. A tonal presence, clear enough to feel. Humanity arrives. As expected. Sarah's hand snapped to her weapon. Eric raised his palm, signaling restraint. Identify yourself. The sphere folded inward. From the luminous surge emerged a figure composed of angular plates of light, humanoid in outline but fluid along every edge. It observed Eric with a presence that pressed against thought itself. I am the Archivist of Thresholds. Custodian of Sealed Histories. Your species has reached a fulcrum long foreseen. Dravik stepped forward, voice steady. What is this structure? A proof. And a warning. Eric kept his expression neutral. The Vraxilians claimed this weapon was theirs. It is not a weapon. It is an interface, capable of reshaping and evaluating the outcome of conflict on a planetary scale. A tool designed to prevent extinction, yet, in the wrong hands, it becomes the author of it. Saris frowned. Then why does Vraxilis have it? The archivist's form darkened slightly, as if absorbing the question. Because they discovered fragments scattered during the old cycle. They imitate what they do not comprehend. Eric felt a chill. Old cycle? A war so devastating its consequence was sealed from memory. Only constructs like myself remain to preserve fragments. Humanity carries echoes of that conflict in its DNA. Saris stiffened. Are you saying we fought before? On a galactic scale? Humanity was not yet planetary. But the seed of your tenacity, your capacity to alter fate, is ancient. Dravik exhaled slowly. And now the Vraxilians are triggering the same chain. The archivist inclined its head. They seek dominance without understanding that the device they wield could cascade across the spiral arm. Unchecked, it will unravel countless systems. Eric met the construct's glowing gaze. What does it want from us? Correction. Before Eric could respond, the chamber shifted, projecting a vast holographic construct of the galaxy. A point of bright red appeared in Vraxilian space, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lines radiated outward, tracing possible outcomes. Each line ended in collapse, systems dissolving into distortion. Saris swallowed. Worst-case projections? Not projections, the archivist corrected. Certainties, unless the course sequence is stopped at its origin point. Dravik scowled. Their homeworld. Eric felt the weight settle into his chest. They had traveled light years to stop a superweapon. But this was larger. Much larger. And the task was now theirs alone. Why us? He asked quietly. The archivist folded into stillness, as if considering how much to reveal. Because humanity remembers. Because humanity answers cruelty with precision. Because every favor you return, every enemy you confront, builds a ledger the galaxy cannot ignore. It stepped closer, its voice tightening. And because you do not break. Eric felt something shift in the air, an echo of thousands of years pressing into a single moment. Show us how to disable it. The construct extended a limb of shimmering geometry. A data key of crystalline light materialized in Eric's hand, warm and pulsing with internal rhythm. This contains the counter sequence. It must be delivered into the primary core on Vraxilis Prime. Once activated, it will collapse the unstable chain and seal the technology. Saris grimaced. We'll be flying into the center of their territory. You will not be alone. The archivist lifted its arms. The entire chamber ignited. The distortion dissolved, revealing a fleet of dormant autonomous vessels hidden across the ruined planet, sleek, angular craft bearing markings older than any galactic language. Engines awakened with deep harmonic resonance. Dravik stared. These ships? Ancient guardians. They answered to the bearer of the key. Eric felt the ground steady beneath him. For the first time since entering the rift, the path forward felt less like a gamble and more like a duty. Saris activated her comms. Triarch Control, this is Vanguard's Spear Team. We're bringing company. The archivist's tone softened. Humanity's rise has been delayed many cycles. Do not allow this one to collapse. The chamber dimmed. The figure faded until only its voice remained. Remember, vengeance echoes, but purpose endures. Then the distortion collapsed entirely, pulling itself inward until only bare ground remained. The chamber, the geometry, the archivist, gone. Eric tightened his grip on the data key. We're heading to Vraxilis Prime. Dravik nodded, jaw set. And we're bringing the past with us. Saris pointed toward the awakening fleet, engines glowing like newly born stars. Let's show them why humanity answers every threat. Eric strode toward the nearest vessel. No more warnings. No more restraint. He paused at the ramp, gazing at the storm clearing across the horizon. Time to end this. The ancient ship powered up, its lights forming a single line toward the sky. Their objective was clear, their path dangerous, and their resolve unshakable. Humanity moved, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with a promise forged across ages. And the galaxy prepared to witness it.